Welcome to the PrePost Film Review. I'm Matt Stevenson.
And I'm John Asquith. If you've never listened to the show before, the way we organise things here is we talk about a film over two separate time periods. The first part that you'll hear is us talking about the trailer for a film, which this week is going to be Spotlight, the new film from director Tom McCarthy. So we'll talk about the trailer, maybe some expectations for the film, predictions if it's that sort of movie, how we might feel. And then we come back to record after we've seen the film itself, and we sort of go into a review. We jump straight into spoilers for the review section, so don't listen to that until you've seen the film. But of course the trailer thoughts are spoiler free because we haven't seen the movie yet, so it'd be hard to spoil it. I mean, we could accidentally spoil it, I guess. Have we done that before?
I don't think so.
I don't know if we have, like, massively.
No.
Which means we're very bad at predicting things.
Yeah.
So let's go on to our trailer thoughts for Spotlight.
I know there's things you cannot tell me. But I also know there's a story here, and I think everybody will hear about it.
Do you think your paper has the resources to take that on?
I do. Do you?
The Boston priests molested kids in 6 different parishes over the last 30 years. The church found out about it and did nothing. We haven't committed any long-term investigative resources to the case.
No, we haven't.
And that's the kind of thing your team would do.
Spotlight? Guys, listen. Everybody's going to be interested in this.
Obviously, the church will fight us very hard.
I'm trying to get some background information.
I don't want you recording this in any way, shape, or form. Nothing.
We understand you've settled several cases against the church.
I can't discuss that.
There aren't any records of any of these settlements.
Nope.
When you're a poor kid from a poor family, and when a priest pays attention to you, it's a big deal. How do you say no to God?
Spotlight. Just the tip line. You think he's got something?
So we've just watched the trailer for the film Spotlight, Tom McCarthy's follow-up to the critically pandered The Cobbler, which is quite an amazing jump from what was considered one of the worst films to what has been getting a lot of buzz as one of the best films in recent memory. What do you think this is going to be like, John, based on the trailer we just saw?
I think this looks really good, really solid. I'm excited to see it. I don't know if I'm expecting, a movie that's going to totally blow me away, but I am hoping to get something that's really intriguing. When these sorts of it's not a mystery movie. These sorts of movies that's like unraveling a conspiracy or something like that. Or also, there's something I really like about seeing like journalists that are really good at their job in movies, and they're like going and asking hard questions and like snooping around and all that sort of stuff, like detective sort of. I really like that sort of stuff when it's done well, and this looks like it will be a really super solid investigative story, I suppose, and knowing that it's based on stuff that really happened is interesting, and taking down this establishment that we all know can be pretty corrupt and gross at times is just interesting. And I don't know a lot about what really happened here, so I'm interested on that level as well. The cast looks awesome. Everyone in it is fantastic. I'm really excited. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm on exactly the same page. I totally agree about the joys of watching good reporters do a good job. Like there's something weirdly so appealing about that. Like, I mean, the obvious comparison is All the President's Men, the Robert Redford and Dustin Hoffman film, which I fucking love. Like, that would be up there in the top tiers of my favourite films ever, kind of thing. And every time I see that film, when it finishes, I just want to be a journalist. I just think that it would be the best job, even though it makes it look so, unglamorous and hard. Like, there's something so noble and honourable about it. And yeah, you're totally right. I think this looks to be exactly in that vein. I mean, there's nothing that blows me away in terms of style or filmmaking or anything that looks like it's going to be particularly different. I just think this is going to be a small, sort of well-made, well-told film that, like you said, is kind of exposing an interesting and important subject that, like you, I don't know that much about, only broad strokes of what happened with the church. I don't know the intricacies of what went down. And I mean, I guess, this is a fictional film, it's not a documentary, so I'm not going to look at it as a history lesson, but it's nice to, be exploring something that I don't know everything about.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to this. I think this trailer, just in itself, is actually quite a good trailer. I think at the start it might sort of play a little heavy-handed with some of the booming musical cues and like the aerial shots of the cities and things, and it seems pretty by the numbers. But by the end, like the build that this trailer has, and I've seen this trailer maybe like 3 or 4 times now, just in front of films in the cinemas. Like they're pushing it hard over here. And every single time I get like goosebumps and almost like choked up a little bit at the end when it's like building and there's all the like yelling and the accusing people, and it's just like the subject matter is so powerful, and when they do a really good job of in this trailer building that up to something really strong, I think. So hopefully the movie can sort of match that intensity, at least by the end.
Yeah, absolutely. And, that's something we talk about sometimes, is the actual crafting of the trailer itself and not giving too much away, but at the same time maybe having a little arc or a little something in there that makes it interesting. And I agree, this one builds really well. Like they've done a great job editing this one.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess it's kind of hard to spoil something that's based on true events that you kind of know what went down, but it doesn't feel overly spoilery.
There's I'm sure there's stuff in there they could give away.
True.
But it feels like there isn't. You just get the general gist of what's happening. They're investigating stuff, people are getting annoyed at them, and they're starting to get more personally involved.
Yeah.
That's enough,
Yeah. I haven't not seen The Cobbler, which I brought up earlier, which is meant to be utterly terrible, but I would really love to watch that and then watch this as like a double bill, just to see how different they could be, because that's one of the things I'm most interested in a weird way, is this film as like a redemptive film for Tom McCarthy after the slamming he got from The Cobbler, and I'm curious to see, I don't know, like how he's changed as a filmmaker between those two films. So I might try and squeeze that in before I see Spotlight.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
But overall, I'm pretty excited for this. I mean, it's like I said, something I wouldn't have expected to be very excited about, but given the buzz that it got out of festivals and like the strength of that trailer, I'm pretty interested in this now.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'm looking forward to checking it out.
Show me that it came from the top down.
They'll try to silence anyone who speaks out.
You leave me alone, you hear me, goddammit?
6% act out sexually.
6% is 90.
90 priests.
If there were 90 of these bastards, people would know.
Maybe they do.
You're going to give me the names and the names of their victims.
Are you threatening me?
I was doing my job.
Yeah, you and everyone else.
I am here because I care. We're going to tell this story. We're going to tell it right.
I'm hoping we can keep this between us until we all get on the same page.
Is that why we're here, to get on the same page?
We've got 2 stories here. A story about degenerate clergy, and a story about a bunch of lawyers turning child abuse into a cottage industry. Which story do you want us to write? Because we're writing one of them.
I'm not crazy. They control everything.
This is not just Boston. It's the whole country. It's the whole world.
They knew, and they let it happen. It could have been you. It could have been me. It could have been any of us.
So we've both just seen the new film Spotlight, John. It's been getting a lot of buzz around the awards season. A lot of hype coming out of some festivals earlier this year. I think we were both sort of mildly excited based on the trailer. What did you think? What did you think of the final film?
I think it is almost exactly what I did expect. Based on what we were talking about in the trailer thing. It was really solid, well-made, interesting story. I mean, I part of the reason I really liked it is just that the material in it is really fascinating, and quite horrific and scary as well, and that keeps you sort of invested the whole time. I don't know if I was completely floored by it or really thrilled or anything. I think it was just really well made. It's very, very solid. Good performances. I think they did a good job of doling out all this information, which could be very hard to sort of get across. They did a nice job of just parceling out enough that you could follow certain things at different times and not overwhelming you with all these facts and figures and things like that. The performances were really good. Mark Ruffalo was like really good, but almost a bit charactery.
Nearly like tipped over the edge into...
Yeah, a couple of times it was maybe a bit too much. But yeah, really solid. I'm sort of finding it hard to say much more than that, because even though there's a lot to talk about with the subject matter, just from a film standpoint, it's just like really, really well made, good film. Yeah. Yeah. What did you think, Matt?
Yeah, I mainly agree. It was pretty much exactly what I expected. Though I was a little, I think, underwhelmed at first. Maybe for the first, 15 minutes or so. I don't know, there was something about even though I expected it to be a simply told story, there was something about the simplicity of it, and it felt almost overscored or something at the beginning, and there was almost like a 90s TV movie vibe to it or something that I kind of didn't.
I thought the same thing, actually. It felt like a TV movie a lot of the time.
Well, I felt that at this particular start, but as I watched the film, it kind of grew on me more and more, and I think a lot of that is deliberate stylistic choices to be reminiscent of the time that it's set. Like it's almost like it was made in the 90s or whenever like the events of the film were actually happening, and it was just a really great example of how simple, controlled filmmaking can just slowly, almost invisibly build over the course of the film. Because, man, by the end of this film, there was parts of it that ruined me. Like, I was crying in my seat a couple of times just from, like, little shots. Like, I mean, a lot of it's the subject matter. Like, I was just so outraged at what was going on in the story. And I mean, I guess that's kind of the point of the invisible filmmaking here, is to point out, not deter from the importance of what the message is of the film. But just, there was like 3 scenes in particular that right at the end was sort of when they know the extent of the abuse cases, and Mark Ruffalo goes into one of the churches and just stands in the doorway and just watches this choir of young children just singing in the church. And there was just something about how horrific and heartbreaking, like these innocent children who are, you just look at that, how naive and happy they are, and you can point to any one of them, and likelihood, if it hasn't happened, some of them will be abused or have been. Which I just found so utterly heartbreaking. And absolutely. Similarly, there was a great moment with Rachel McAdams' grandmother, and she was like so entrenched in the church, and like that was her life, and she went there multiple times a week, and Rachel McAdams was always sort of worried about, it never sort of overtly stated, but the effects this will have on her. And right at the end, when the story's published, she's just reading the newspaper silently at the table, and just the look on her face, and I think she doesn't even say anything, she's not even teary or anything, she just asks for like a cup of tea or something, but it's just you can see like her entire world has just been shattered, and what that must be like to have something that you so deeply, deeply believe in, and it's so part of the community and part of your life, and just have it be exposed for this kind of like disgusting, evil grossness. I can't imagine how much that would like tear you up, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
And the third thing that really hit me was weirdly at the end of the film how it just lists like all the cities.
Yeah, that was
and it was like
super
a gut punch. Like I saw like Dandenong in Melbourne, Victoria, which is like close to where I grew up. You know what I mean? Like I went to church as a kid. I went to Sunday school, and there was like shit was happening. You know what I mean? Like I felt like fucking hell, that could have been me. You know, I mean, I was never in church enough probably for it to actually happen, but you know, I was close enough where it felt like it really hit home, and I don't know, it just like rattled me. I came out of that film like shaking with like anger and sadness, and I don't know. Anyway, I'm going off on a weird emotional tangent there, but
I felt the same way.
Yeah, like I totally agree that it's not a flashy film, or there's nothing about the film that wowed me, or you know, we just recently saw things like The Hateful Eight and The Revenant, which is such showy, impressive, amazing examples of filmmaking and what you can do with the medium, and you know, this can't compare in any way to those in that sense. But you know, I don't think it necessarily needs to, and I think this is a good example of, you know, simple storytelling done well, and just the power of a really good, well-told story. And it's patient too. Like I liked it takes its time, and it just trusts you to be interested. There's kind of no tension or no big... I mean, the villain's the church. There's a villain, but there's never like a race against the clock to do anything really.
No, that's
like
right.
It's just slowly, methodically making sure they get all their facts right. Like, I really like that. That was... I feel like a lesser filmmaker would have inserted some, you know, deadlines they had to get. I mean, I guess there was a moment where he was trying to get the documents from the court before anyone else did, but I mean, that wasn't really that tense, you know? Yeah, I just feel like if we'd seen it done by a lesser filmmaker or someone that wasn't interested in letting the story just naturally play out, there would have been lots of tension and stakes kind of inserted into the film that didn't need to be there.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, you know, when I said before that I was finding it hard to sort of say more, I was more thinking about the filmmaking side and as a film, but of course the subject matter, and that's really what carries the movie.
Totally.
And why it's getting such great attention, because it is really well made, but the stuff in it is just like, you know, mind-blowing. And I was thinking when I was watching it that it is just the next step of the investigation they were doing, in a way. You know, it's just now there's a movie based on their work, and it's just another way for them to get the message out there to even more people now. It's not just this newspaper, it's like all over the world.
Yeah, totally.
Which was really interesting, and as you said, that all the lists at the end of all the places there were. I don't believe there was the town I grew up in, but ones that were really close. And just seeing that name on the screen, as you say, it's just like, what? You know? Yeah. I thought in that sense, you know, you grow to sort of really respect these characters, and then the movie is just the next kind of logical extension of all this work that they've done, which is really good.
Yeah, I totally agree. That's one thing I felt coming out of this, is it felt like, in a weird way, an important film. Like, I'm glad it's being told, and I'm glad it's getting the attention that it's getting, because I mean, everyone's kind of aware of the abuse scandals, or at least I was. You know, I knew it happened. It was a big news thing a few years back, but I think it's kind of like fallen... The
extent of it.
Yeah, like people sort of have forgotten how extensive it was, or at least I had. You know, it's sort of become a little bit of a joke, like, you know, you laugh at how fucked up the church system is and poke fun at the priesthood, but that's as the extent of it. and this kind of reminded me of how extensive and how prevalent it is within the church, or was, It's just
and how much it was hidden and covered up, which is just unbelievable.
Yeah. I also I thought it did a good job. I guess this is a similar way in terms of the filmmaking, but the way it slowly built the characters as well. Like by the end of the film, I really felt like I knew everyone involved in the story. And then there's a great moment at the end where you realise that, or it's revealed that Michael Keaton, like years back, got the information and buried it in the back of the paper somewhere when they found that 20 priests had committed abuse or had been accused of committing abuse. And again, like it wasn't played as a big moment. I mean, it shocked the other characters, but it was just a great little complication and an example of, he wasn't a bad dude. He wasn't trying to hide it, but it was just that's what I loved about it. Yeah, the social structures and the pressure from, well, not even pressure, I guess, just the way they look at the church and the way that it's seen within their community, and what you do with something like that. Instead of launching this investigation with 5 people over months and months, they just stick it in the back of the paper so it doesn't offend anyone. You know what I mean? They just treat it as another news story.
Yeah. Well, what I really liked too was he says, well, firstly, it's almost built up as this mystery throughout the thing, and I, not knowing anything about the real story, thought it was the madman actor John Slattery. I thought he was the one that had buried it in the past, because he seemed a bit suspicious of the investigation for the first half of the movie. And I think he was more just socially suspicious, like, well, this is a big gamble for our popularity and the people around here. So many people are religious and that thing, and so it was a nice surprise, I guess. I mean, can you call it a surprise when it's based on real life? But that it wasn't him, and it was the Michael Keaton character. But yeah, as you say, it wasn't out of any deliberate sort of hiding or burying. And I like that he said, like, I don't know why I didn't push it further. Like, as you say, it was all these societal things that were subconsciously perhaps doing it, but it's not like he sat down and was like, burn those files, get rid of that, or whatever. Yeah. And he had a point to prove this time.
Exactly. It's totally like a great representation of how things like that go unpunished or just left to happen in the background. No one's, well, I mean, there are people that are deliberately trying to hide them, but you know what I mean? Like, it happens, things like that happen, and then you don't pay much attention to it, and then years pass and you just forget and nothing gets done. You know what I mean? Like, he couldn't even remember what he did. Like,
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I don't know. It just
felt very real, I guess, because it was.
Yes, yeah, true. And I totally agree. And it was kind of like a great little microcosm of what or how abuse scandals like this can, actually happen.
Yep, absolutely. Do you think, I mean, it's a really good movie. Is it worth the sort of hype that's around it, do you think?
Yes.
Or are people just responding to the message more than the film?
I think both.
Which is fine.
I think, it didn't blow me away. I didn't sit there and go, this is one of the best movies I've seen all year or whatever. But there was, like I said, a subtle simplicity to it that built, and I think there's something to be, I mean, the subject matter's affecting, but there is something to say about the way it's handled that allowed it to be so powerful by the end. But I do think a lot of it is just the outrage you get from that scandal, and it's just a really competently made story about that. So I think it's also like it's rare to see old school filmmaking like this these days. Where it
that's
just
true.
Lets things play out, which I think critics in particular respond to, just because you're so bombarded with modern, fast, CGI-filled storytelling, and when you get something that's a bit more restrained and telling an important story, it jumps out.
Very good point. Yeah.
And I see a lot of films, so I'm probably a little bit guilty of that as well. Like, it was just a nice breath of fresh air. But I don't think it's the most amazing film in the last year or so, and maybe some of the praise has been a little bit hyperbolic. I think a lot of it too is like, we talked about this in the trailer review, trailer discussion, and I didn't get to see the Cobbler before I saw this, but coming off the Cobbler, you know, especially for critics, this is must seem so incredible, you know, having made what was considered one of the worst films of the year. The expectations must have been pretty low for this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sitting down and having this movie play out in front of you would have been a big surprise, I think. What about you? Do you think it's worthy of all the praise?
I pretty much just agree with you as always, so I won't waffle on too much. But yeah, I think, I definitely think it's about the message. But as you, that's such a good point that you brought up, but I didn't really consider, but something we've talked about a little bit before on the podcast is these big movies, in the sense that they're funded by big studios and they've got, you know, well-established actors in them, but there's no action or fast ADD editing or anything. It is just for adults, for them to watch this thing and think about what's in it. And that's a great point, and I totally respect that.
I also actually really liked the subtle way it handled and hinted at the looming internet threat to the press paper, like the physical newspaper
that was
business.
really good.
Like, it was never, no one ever really, there was no grandstanding and no big like moment where they spoke about how the industry's dying, but there's kind of just a couple of scenes where they talk about, will there be layoffs? Like, it felt very real, like what you would actually be thinking about if you worked there. And there was little things like, I think it's the shot towards the end when they two of the characters, I can't remember who, drive to the Boston Globe offices on the weekend, and it's kind of empty, and there's like a wide shot, and just in the left of the wide shot there's a massive billboard that just says AOL, and it's like an internet provider just hanging literally hanging over the building of the Boston Globe. I don't know, I just thought that was really smartly handled, and you can kind of dig into that a little bit, but it was never thrown in your face.
Yep, that's a very good point. It was nicely. There was lots of nice sort of little subtle things like that. Like, as you've already said, the Rachel McAdams with her nan, Michael Keaton sort of coming from this posh school and having to uphold the honor of that school, and like all the little jabs from the people he works with, and him having to sort of choose which way he's going to align himself. All those little things kind of peppered throughout were really, really added to the depth of it all. Yeah,
I totally agree. So I think, based on the trailer, it was pretty much overall what I expected, even if it started off a bit less. Like, I kind of sat down going, is everyone really getting excited about this film? This film doesn't feel that great. But by the end, it was almost a little bit above what I expected, just in terms of the emotional impact it had on me. I didn't expect to get that thrown by it and be that moved by the story. So I'd say overall it's what I expected. It is really a really, really good film, worthy of a lot of the praise, perhaps just not as hyperbolic. I think it's a good example, like what I said before about it being old school filmmaking. I think this year, last year now, has been a good year for a strangely good year for old school style filmmaking with this and Bridge of Spies. We talked about that in our review. Crimson Peak, which I loved, I think is a great example of that. I don't know. It's just nice to have these films. It feels
I agree.
Quite rare, like you said.
Yeah, and they seem to be doing okay, for their range. So hopefully, we just keep getting more of them. I think that's sort of exciting.
Yeah, totally. Thanks for listening to the Pre-Post Film Review. We'd love to know what you guys thought of Spotlight. Did it live up to your expectations? Is it one of the year's best, as some of the critics have been calling it, or was it mildly disappointing? Let us know. We love to get feedback from our listeners, and we reply to all our emails, so you can shoot us an email at prepostfilmreview@gmail.com. That would be awesome.
That would be great. You guys can also find us on Facebook and give us a like there if you would like to do that. You don't have to, of course. We're also on Twitter at PrePostFR, so you can give us a follow there and see what we're up to, what film news is happening, what little bits and pieces we're talking about. But most importantly, if you guys could subscribe to us on iTunes or whatever podcasting service you use, that would be really great. It helps us to get more listeners and spread word of the show. And if you feel so inclined, you could also leave a review on one of those platforms, or just iTunes really is the most important. So just do that if you want.
Yeah, that'd be great. And the other way you can stay in contact with Jon and myself is through the site Letterboxd. It's a cool little site that lets you log and review films and keep a little diary of what you've been watching. There are links to our profiles in the show notes, so you can head on over there and create an account if you don't have one and see what else we've been watching that we don't necessarily talk about on the podcast. And tune in next episode when we're going to be chatting about the new Coen Brothers film, Hail Caesar.